35 towers, 236 individual townhouses, 15,000 apartments, roughly 50,000 people. It's its own zip code, its own power plant, its own newspaper, its own police force. If Co-op City were not part of New York City, it would be one of the larger cities in New York State. But 60 years ago, none of this was here. 60 years ago, this exact patch of ground was an American history-themed amusement park. And before that, it was a swamp. This is one of the strangest pieces of land in New York. And on top of it, somebody built one of the largest affordable housing experiments in American history. Most Bronx neighborhoods grew up around streets. Belmont has Arthur Avenue, Fordham has Fordham Road, the Concourse has the Concourse. The street came first. The neighborhood grew around it. Co-op City is different. There is no original street because there was no original neighborhood. Before any of this, there was a river, a marsh, and a shoreline. The Hutchinson River starts in Westchester, flows down through the Bronx, and empties into Eastchester Bay. The land along its mouth was salt marsh, mud flats, and tidal wetland. Hard to walk on, even harder to build on. On most New York maps from the late 1800s, this part of the Bronx was mostly blank. Not because nothing was there, but because the city had not yet decided what to do with it. Before any of this had a New York name on it, this land was the homeland of the Lenape people. Today, Lenape citizens are part of federally recognized nations, like the Delaware Tribe of Indians, the Delaware Nation, and the Stockbridge-Munsee community. What we do know is this: New York City Parks itself identifies parts of the Pelham Bay shoreline, the same shoreline that wraps around what is now Co-op City, as sites of sacred ceremonies, burial grounds, and the gathering of wampum. Archaeological evidence from this stretch of the Bronx, shell remains, pottery, goes back long before any Dutch ship arrived. Here's the point. Co-op City was not dropped into a normal Bronx street grid. It was dropped onto an edge, a wet, marshy, peripheral edge that the city had spent 200 years trying to decide what to do with. And because it was an edge, nobody had built a tight neighborhood here yet, which meant the city wanted to try something huge. There was room. 320 acres, 5 times the size of Yankee Stadium's entire site, sitting where a tidal marsh used to be. That openness, the very thing that made the land hard to develop, is what made everything that came next possible. Before this was Co-op City, this was Freedomland. In June of 1960, 85 acres of marshland in the Northeast Bronx were turned into an American history theme park. It cost about $65 million to build. Opening day pulled in something like 65,000 visitors. The man behind this was Cornelius Vanderbilt Wood, C.V. Wood. He called himself the master planner of Disneyland. He actually worked on Disneyland out in California, then he came east to build this. Freedomland was not a regular amusement park. It was shaped like the United States, the whole map of the country, laid out in a Bronx swamp. You entered near Little Old New York, you walked west through Chicago, the Plains, the Old Southwest, San Francisco, New Orleans. It was Disneyland's East Coast cousin. While Disneyland was selling fairy tales, Freedomland was selling a version of America, specifically a Cold War version. Progress, frontier, settlement, invention. The country has a story that always moved forward and always won. And look, it's easy to laugh at this now, but this was the early 60s. Suburbs were exploding, television was selling families on the image of America, the space race was on. Freedomland was just that same energy, built at amusement park scale and in the Bronx. It was a fake America, built on real marsh at the edge of a real city. Freedomland lasted 4 summers. The land was difficult. The mosquitoes were brutal. The park was expensive to run. There were lawsuits, including a stagecoach that flipped and injured riders. The 1964 World's Fair opened in Queens and pulled the crowds. The investor relationship fell apart, and by the end of 1964, Freedomland was bankrupt and closed. The Bronx had its own Disneyland, and then the Bronx did it. But here's the twist that matters. The land did not go back to being a marsh. 85 acres of cleared, filled, assembled, big empty Bronx, already owned, already graded, already prepared, does not just sit there in New York City. So, somebody had a much bigger idea. In 1965, the same year the Voting Rights Act was signed, the same year the first U.S. combat troops landed in Vietnam, New York announced a plan for the former Freedomland site. Not another park, not a stadium, not a shopping mall, a city. 15,000 apartments, 35 high-rise towers, 7 townhouse clusters, schools, shopping, garages, community centers, all built at once. Designed for working and middle-class New Yorkers, Co-op City was built under a New York State program called Mitchell-Lama, named after a state senator and an assemblyman who pushed it through in 1955. The idea behind Mitchell-Lama was pretty radical when you say it out loud now. The state would help finance privately built housing, give the developer low-interest loans and tax breaks, but in exchange, the building had to stay affordable. The rents were capped, the profits were capped. The people who could move in had to be moderate or middle income. This was not public housing. Public housing in New York, what NYCHA does, was built for low-income tenants. Mitchell-Lama was for people in between, the people who made too much for public housing, but not enough to comfortably buy into the suburbs. Bus drivers, garment workers, teachers, sanitation workers, civil servants, retirees on fixed incomes, union households, the exact people New York couldn't afford to lose, and the exact people the suburbs weren't trying to take. Co-op City was sponsored by an outfit called the United Housing Foundation. UHF was tied to the cooperative housing movement, the labor movement, and a man named Abraham Kazan. Kazan had been building cooperative housing in New York since the 1920s. The amalgamated houses in the West Bronx, East River houses, Penn South in Manhattan. His big idea was something he called a cooperative commonwealth. Housing as a shared social institution, not as private speculation. And that word, cooperative, it matters. In Co-op City, you don't rent your apartment. You don't own it the way you own a condo either. You buy shares in a corporation, the corporation owns the buildings, and the residents collectively own the corporation. And this is the key part. The shares have a cap on their value. You can't resell your apartment on the open market for whatever the market will pay. When you leave, your shares go back to the co-op. The next family pays roughly what you paid. Translation, nobody gets rich by leaving, but everybody who comes next gets to stay. Co-op City separated housing from speculation. You bought a home, not a high-yield asset. Construction started in 1966. The first families moved in 1968. The last tower topped off in 1973. 15,372 apartments, 35 towers, 7 townhouse clusters, 320 acres, 3 shopping centers, 3 community centers, 8 parking garages, an education park, nursery through high school, built right into the site, a library, and 50,000 people, more or less, moving in. That is more people than live in Schenectady, or Poughkeepsie, or White Plains. New York basically built an upstate town in the Northeast Bronx on a former amusement park, on a filled-in swamp, and called it housing. Co-op City did not whisper a housing solution. It shouted one. From the air, the difference is obvious. Most Bronx neighborhoods are built around streets. Buildings face the sidewalks. Stores line the avenues. People walk between things. Co-op City is built around a plan. The buildings face inward. The shopping is internal. The streets are loops, cul-de-sacs, peripheral roads. There is no main street. There is no Arthur Avenue. The architect was a guy named Herman Jessor. He designed something like 40,000 cooperative apartments across New York City over his career. He believed in a planning idea called the tower in the park. Tall buildings, open ground between them, light, air, and trees. River Bay, the corporation that runs Co-op City, says only 20% of the 320 acres is actually developed. 80% is open. Lawns, paths, playgrounds, greenway. That ratio is unheard of in most of New York City. The towers made the density possible. The open space was the promise. For families coming out of cramped, old law tenements in the South and West Bronx, this was the offer. Big apartments, real elevators, parquet floors, walk-in closets, central air conditioning, views, lawns, all of it, at a price working people could actually pay. But the part nobody talks about is this. Co-op City doesn't just have apartments, it has infrastructure, its own infrastructure. Look at this. This is Co-op City's tri-generation power plant, 40 megawatts. It produces electricity, heat, hot water, and air conditioning for the entire development. When Hurricane Sandy hit and most of the Bronx lost power, the lights stayed on at Co-op City because Co-op City makes its own power. Co-op City has its own garbage pickup, its own public safety department, peace officers, 24/7 dispatch, patrol cars, detectives, its own weekly newspaper delivered to every building, its own zip code, its own internal road system. Most apartment buildings in New York rely on the city for these things. Co-op City does some of it itself. Co-op City is not just where people live. It's where people shop, go to school, age in place, vote, organize, cool their apartments, heat their homes, and govern a piece of the city together. More than 6,000 seniors live in Co-op City. River Bay calls it the largest naturally occurring retirement community in the country. They have a name for that, a NORC, a neighborhood that became a retirement community without anyone planning it that way. And it happened because the math of Co-op City worked. People moved in when they were 35. Their kids grew up here. The kids left, but the parents stayed. Why would you leave? The apartment is affordable. The utilities are included. The elevators work. The community center is downstairs. Senior programs at multiple locations. The bus stop is at the corner. Co-op City was built for families looking for a future. 50 years later, a lot of those futures became whole lives. Most Bronx neighborhoods are built around streets. Co-op City is built around a plan, but it almost didn't survive. Almost from the moment the first families moved in, the whole thing started to fall apart. Residents had been promised carrying charges of $22 per room per month. That number was the entire sales pitch. That was the price of staying in New York. But the construction costs were already exploding. The initial $235 million mortgage ballooned to $390 million by the time construction finished in 1972. Other accountings put the project cost at $450 million. The land had been filled marshland, 50,000 pilings driven into bedrock, and engineering had been rushed. Bricks leaked, roofs failed, underground pipes broke as the landfill settled, garage decks cracked. Some construction material disappeared. Some construction funds got moved around from bank accounts that didn't show up on the books. And so the state, which had financed all of this, started doing the only thing it knew how to do. It started raising the carrying charges to pay off the debt, to cover the repairs, to make the math work. So in 1970, there was an increase. 71, increase. 73, increase. 1974, increase. And in 75, the state announced the big one. The proposed new carrying charge was $53.50 per room, 250% above what residents had been promised. Co-op City did not become unaffordable all at once. It became unaffordable room by room, increase by increase, bill by bill. In June of 1975, the residents of Co-op City did something nobody had ever done at this scale. They stopped paying.
roughly 80% of Co-op City households joined in. They held back their carrying charges and put them into separate escrow accounts. The strike lasted 13 months, from June 1975 to July 1976. Historians call it the largest rent strike in American history. Technically, it wasn't a rent strike. These were cooperators withholding carrying charges, not tenants withholding rent. But the effect was the same. The leverage was enormous. Here's the thing the state did not fully appreciate. Co-op City was too big to fail. The mortgage was so massive that if Co-op City defaulted, it could nearly bankrupt the New York State Housing Finance Agency. The same residents the state was trying to squeeze were the ones holding the cards. Before he was governor, before the 1984 Democratic Convention speech, before the political dynasty, Mario Cuomo was New York's Secretary of State. Governor Hugh Carey had appointed him in 1975. Cuomo had a reputation. A few years earlier, Mayor Lindsay had sent him to mediate the Forest Hills public housing fight in Queens. Now, Carey sent him to Co-op City. Cuomo worked his back channels. He developed a rapport with the strike leader, Charles Rosen. He had help from the Bronx Borough President, Robert Adams. And after months of negotiation, he brokered a settlement. The deal: residents got amnesty, the fines went away, they turned over the escrow checks, they agreed to resume payments. But, and this is the part that mattered, the state gave shareholders the right to actually govern their place. The voting shares that had been held under the United Housing Foundation got handed to the residents. A 15-member board of directors, elected by Co-op City's own shareholders, would now run the corporation. Co-op City was planned from above, but it became Co-op City because residents took it over from below. And it was a Pyrrhic victory in some ways. The residents got control. They also inherited the debt, the defects, the broken pipes, the settling fill, the unpaid taxes. They had won the war. Now they had to actually run the place. But they had won the right to try. And that, more than the towers, more than the power plant, more than any of it, that is what makes Co-op City Co-op City. Co-op City did not happen in a vacuum. It opened in 1968. The Bronx, the older Bronx, the dense apartment house Bronx, was already in trouble. Redlining had drained mortgage money out of huge sections of the borough. Landlords were walking away from buildings, some were burning them for insurance money. The South Bronx fires were starting. The Grand Concourse, the old Park Avenue of the Bronx, was hemorrhaging its middle class. Riverdale was catching some, Westchester was catching more, and Co-op City was catching the rest. When Co-op City first opened, the population was roughly 3/4 Jewish. Most of them came from the West Bronx, the Concourse, Kingsbridge, the apartment house districts, plus some Black families, Latino families, Italian families, Irish families, but in much smaller numbers. The sales pitch was integration. Labor leader Jacob Patofsky said all races, creeds, and colors would live here. But Bronx Borough President Herman Padilla warned at the time that co-op without rental apartments might effectively become a white enclave because cooperative housing required upfront equity. It required information, savings, and familiarity with how co-ops work. And in 1968, that meant Black and Puerto Rican households often couldn't get in even if they wanted to. Co-op City was built in the language of integration, but access still ran through money, paperwork, waiting lists, and the hidden rules of middle-class housing. Over time, the early residents aged. Some passed, some moved to Florida, some moved upstate. And as apartments turned over, new families moved in, increasingly Black, Latino, West Indian, African, Bangladeshi, Yemeni. Today, zip code 10475, Co-op City, is about 63% Black and 29% Hispanic, about 4% white. The median household income is around 63%. The median age is just under 45. What started as a refuge for one version of the Bronx middle class became a refuge for the next. And this is the part I want to be careful about. The story isn't white people left, Black people moved in. That's too flat, and that misses the point. The real story is Co-op City hell, where so many other parts of the Bronx got hollowed out by speculation, by disinvestment, by displacement. Co-op City stayed. The building stayed. The affordability stayed. The structure stayed. And the people changed because the people of the Bronx changed. In most of New York, stability raises prices. In Co-op City, the whole point was to keep stability from turning into displacement. Today, Co-op City's culture is whatever its 50,000 residents bring with them. Caribbean, African, Dominican, Puerto Rican, African American, the remaining older Jewish and Italian residents who never left. And the new arrivals, Bangladeshi, Yemeni, West African, taking apartments as they open up. It is one of the most quietly multicultural places in New York, and almost none of it makes the news, because Co-op City does not make news the way other Bronx neighborhoods do. It's not gentrifying, it's not burning, it's not on a tour list, it's just there, holding. And right across this road, where Freedomland's parking lot used to be, is Bay Plaza, New York City's largest shopping center. 2 million square feet, 150 plus stores, 16 million visitors a year. Macy's, Apple, H&M, JCPenney. The first enclosed shopping mall built in New York City in 40 years opened here in 2014. This is what makes Co-op City visually different from the rest of the Bronx. Most Bronx shopping happens on streets. Fordham Road, Allerton Avenue, Southern Boulevard. Bay Plaza happens in parking lots. The retail logic is suburban. The scale is regional. Together, Co-op City and Bay Plaza make a strange thing. A planned residential city attached to a highway-scale retail district, all sitting on top of a former amusement park, on top of a former marsh. Most Bronx shopping districts grew from the sidewalk. Bay Plaza grew from the site plan. Remember this place, the power plant? 40 megawatts, heats, cools, and powers 50,000 people? The reason your maintenance charge in Co-op City covers all of your utilities? This plant is one of the reasons Co-op City stays affordable. It's also one of the reasons Co-op City's next affordability fight is going to be brutal. In 2019, the city passed Local Law 97. It requires the city's largest buildings, anything over 25,000 square feet, to cut their carbon emissions, with stricter limits starting in 2030, and a goal of net zero by 2050. Buildings produce more than 2/3 of New York City's carbon emissions. The law is the city's biggest climate tool. It's also, for Co-op City, an enormous problem. Because this power plant burns fuel. To decarbonize it, you don't just swap out a boiler. You're potentially talking about heat pumps, geothermal, solar, battery storage, electrification of 35 towers. River Bay's own general counsel has warned that a forced energy transition could cost up to $1 billion. And here's the question: who pays for that? Because the residents of Co-op City are the people Mitchell-Lama was built to protect. The people who could not afford a private market in 1968 and can't afford it in 2026. If the climate transition gets passed down to them as carrying charges, the affordability that defines this place starts to crack. The climate goal and the affordability goal need to be solved together. If they're not, Co-op City could survive its first crisis, the 1975 strike, and lose its second one without anyone outside even noticing. Co-op City's first crisis was about building affordable housing. The next one is about decarbonizing it without destroying it. There is one more thing on the horizon. For decades, Metro North trains have run through East Bronx on the Hellgate line, the Amtrak corridor, without stopping. They pass Co-op City every day. They just didn't serve it. That is changing. The MTA is building 4 new Metro North stations in the East Bronx: Hunts Point, Parkchester, Morris Park, and Co-op City. It'll provide Penn Station access. Current estimated completion is 2030. It'll be the first time Co-op City has a regional rail stop of its own, a direct shot from the Northeast Bronx to Penn Station, a direct shot up to Westchester and Connecticut. Co-op City, which was built around buses, garages, and highways, is finally getting a rail map, which is good and also complicated because better transit usually raises real estate pressure around the station. Co-op City's limited equity structure protects the apartments themselves from speculation, but the commercial parcels around the station, the parking lots, the Bay Plaza side, those are open questions. For now, the train is coming, and the trains that used to pass through East Bronx are finally gonna stop. So, Co-op City, 15,000 apartments on a filled-in marsh on top of a failed amusement park. Built by unions, funded by the state, designed by an architect who wanted everyone to have light and air, sold to a middle class that almost left New York, saved by a rent strike, run by a board of its own residents-elect, powered by a plant that produces its own electricity, aging, imperfect, politically alive, and still, 50+ years in, one of the largest pieces of affordable housing in the United States. A place where someone making $63,000 a year with a kid and a parent to take care of can stay in New York. Not as a renter, as a shareholder, as a voter in their own building. Co-op City is not a perfect model. It's a proof of capacity. It proves that New York can build affordable housing at massive scale. It also proves that scale only survives with governance, investment, maintenance, and political will. Most of New York forgot how to build at this scale. Co-op City is what it looked like when we still knew how. Next episode, we'll head deeper into the Bronx to try a different neighborhood, a different story, a different chapter of how this borough actually got built. Subscribe to follow the tour, Patreon link in the description for deeper dives, the policy notes, and early access to episodes. And drop me a comment. Which Bronx neighborhood do you want me to tour next? See you soon.